Hello and welcome to the Royal Blue podcast with me, Ian Croll. Today's show is the Sunderland match preview. We have a view from the opposition ahead of Monday night's game at the Stadium of Light. And joining me all the way from the northeast, we have Sunderland fan and host of his own Sunderland-related YouTube channel, Connor Bromley. Connor, how are things? All good?
All good, yeah. Sunderland world right now, everything's rosy, isn't it? I mean, after what was January 2022, we got beat 6-0 away at Bolton. So as you leave Stamford Bridge, winning 2-1, only 3 and a bit years later, you are pinching yourself, going, "Is this real? Did it happen?" So yeah, it's all good when it comes to Sunderland right now.
And I'm sure we will come on to it, but expectations-wise for Sunderland at this moment in time, I'm sure are sky high.
Yeah, it's difficult because you just want to survive. That's like the number one goal, isn't it? And the manager said this after the game at the weekend, like, are you looking higher than that? And, we've got 17 points from 9 games. Even if we play as badly as Leicester did last season, if we can't have their points per game, we would probably sit somewhere around 36, 37 points. So, we aren't that bad, obviously. So it feels like survival. We're not there, but it feels like we're getting there quite quickly. But I'm still thinking that this it's not fourth in the Premier League. I think we are going to be somewhere in the region of 10th to 14th would be my honest guess right now, which is fantastic considering the world thought that newly promoted teams have to get relegated. That's the rhetoric going into this season, was that the Premier League in the Championship, it was a shambles, the gap was too big and it was impossible to bridge. But it looks like all three newly promoted teams are pretty good. Obviously Sunderland being the standout, but even Leeds and Burnley look good as well. So I think it's good for football that, all three have had a decent start.
Well, I mean, obviously expectations rise as when positive results come. I guess the main objective within the club would still be to survive and stay in the Premier League. I guess you've already touched on it there. 17 points, you are nearly halfway there. I mean, that is surely beyond your wildest dreams where you are at this moment in time.
Yeah, it is. And I don't know, Everton fans might not know much about what Sunderland have done since they've fallen out of the Premier League. Obviously, we fell out in 2017 under David Moyes, who I'm sure we'll talk about at some point. But in that time, Sunderland hit rock bottom. They covered it on Netflix. It was a disaster. We fell at the League One. We were awful in League One. We ended up getting out through the playoffs, so we didn't even win League One. But the club hired a new director of football in Christian Speakman, and they changed the way we did things, and we recruit pretty young players, and we revived a lot of players' careers. And then as we've got into the Premier League, they've just done the same thing, but with money. They've been able to, instead of buying players for £1-2 million, like we bought Job, who obviously is went on Borussia Dortmund, he was like £3 million. Now we can spend £30 million on a player and do the same thing. So I think the context around Sunderland, for a lot of people on the outside looking in, they don't understand how this club operates. We operate in a very different way, similar to maybe what you'd say Brighton and Brentford do. But even again, it is different to their sort of model, and the club's built itself from the ground up. And obviously the difference between us and, say, a Brentford is obviously we've got the infrastructure of having the a top academy. We've got lots of youth players coming through. We have the stadium and all that sort of stuff. So we are different to them. We are I would say a similar size club to Everton, but we've fallen through the leagues, and now we've been able to build ourselves in a way that obviously when you're in the Premier League, Everton have seen this over the years when they've had struggles sort of in the last 5 or 6 years. It's really hard to rebuild when you're in the Premier League, but as you come down, it's quite easy to build solid foundations because you're coming from ground zero. And I think that's what Sunderland's done. So it's surprising that we've obviously done so well this season, but I think if you actually zoom out and kind of look at what the club's been doing, it's no shock that they've got all their recruitment correct, because they've been doing that for years. I mean, we got promoted to the Premier League while making a profit, which is pretty unheard of.
Interesting point you make about the rebuild, and that it's easier to do so if you are relegated, or if you can do it from a lower foundation, because obviously Everton have had their own relegation problems and managed to survive on numerous occasions. And as a fan base and speaking to Everton fans on a regular basis, even just my personal point of view, I just always thought it would have been an absolute catastrophe for Everton to be relegated. Obviously, it's not just the issues on the pitch, it's the performance. It's the performances on the pitch, but it's also the financials. I mean, I'm sure, as you know, from the outside looking in, Everton have faced point deductions for financial issues with regards to PSR and stuff like that. So I do find it fascinating that you say it's been slightly easier to rebuild from a perspective lower down the league. Really interesting.
But you've got to endure that horrificness. I mean, like, it's all well and good.
No, I'm not going there. I don't want to go there.
Yeah.
I just can't. I just can't do it.
Yeah, but like when we fell into the Championship and then got relegated straight away again. So for 2 seasons, we were absolutely horrific. Darren Bent, who was our former player, relegated us, scoring for Burton Albion. That's how bad it got with Sunderland. The ground was, there was at times 16,000 people in the stadium, even though the reported attendance was 30 because they had sold so many season ticket holders. But it was a dying club, and then what it's taken is that to happen. We almost did die. I actually look at Sunderland as 2 different things, sort of pre and post-COVID. The post-COVID Sunderland is a brand new club compared to what we saw die under the David Moyes going through to, the beginning of about the Netflix documentaries and all that. The club died at that point, and then when the new owners came in, we feel totally brand new, and it feels like Sunderland being in the Premier League's fresh. Even though I was there and had a season ticket and saw all of us in the Premier League, it does feel like a different club in a lot of ways, but I think that's what you get. I mean, if Everton had got relegated, which, to be honest, I thought they would have been relegated by now, being brutally honest on the outside looking in, I think there was that survival you had against Crystal Palace.
The Palace one was obviously 2-0 down. It was the second to last game of the season, and we were 2-0 down and ended up coming back 3-2. And then the Bournemouth one was probably worse, if I'm being totally honest, just because that was the final game and Everton needed to win because Leicester were winning. So I think it was half time. It was 0-0, but Leicester were winning and Everton were in the relegation zone. So the emotion and being drained on that day, it was one of the worst experiences that you could face as a fan. Fortunately, we did get through that, and we managed to build a few foundations, and we are still in the Premier League. But I mean, we'll come on to the fact that maybe Sunderland are slightly doing better and struggling. I mean, it is worth mentioning, Connor, that you have been a Sunderland fan for what you've been a Sunderland fan for your entire life, I'm sure, but you've been covering Sunderland in the media, fanzines for 10 years. You've even worked for the club, so you are well placed to speak about Sunderland, but you've also got your own YouTube channel as well, which is called Beyond the Big Six. Do Everton feature in that on a regular basis?
Yeah, that's something that I devised this summer when Sunderland got promoted to the Premier League. Obviously, when we're in the Championship, we're one of the biggest clubs, so there is a lot of Championship podcasts that cover Sunderland extensively, and I don't necessarily like listening to just Sunderland fans' perspective on it. I like hearing the neutral voice. And when Sunderland got promoted, I was like, there was literally nobody talking about the teams that aren't named Manchester United, Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, Man City, and Tottenham. So I thought, all right, okay, I'm going to start something. So that's more of a hobby thing that I do, just because I find it interesting. I get sick of listening to Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher on the overlap every week, just rehashing the same topics. I don't know. The back end of last season, it was Trent Alexander-Arnold. Will he sign a new contract? Will he not? And Ruben Ambrams played a 3-4-3 still. Will it work? Will it not? And I get bored of that. So, yeah, I just sort of came up with that just as a way of me putting some content out there, which is a bit neutral, where we do talk about the other teams in the Premier League and give a bit of love to, I would say clubs like Everton. Obviously, Everton's one of the biggest teams in the Premier League, but, give love to maybe Brentford and Fulham and all them teams that maybe don't get much coverage.
No, I mean, it's a fascinating idea, and you've almost got a niche. And when I say niche, it's not really a niche, because as a collective, there's hundreds of thousands, millions of fans across the other 14 teams in the Premier League. So it's fascinating idea for a YouTube channel. And Everton were once considered one of the big five back late 80s, early 90s, and we know that shifts. That changes from time to time depending on how teams are doing and how the football landscape looks. So, Everton currently are, I guess, well below where we expect to be. Just before we do get into the nitty-gritty, Connor, just a shout out for our sponsor, for our audience as well. So to get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/EFC. Our link will also give you 4 extra months on the 2-year plan, and there's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee, and the link is in the podcast episode description. So, Connor, if you fancy discounts on a VPN, go into the podcast episode description box and we can sort you out.
Happy days.
Okay, like I said, 4th in the table, Connor. wildest dreams. I guess what's been the secret to Sunderland's success? Like you say, no one give any of the promoted teams a chance in hell to survive this season, and Sunderland they're nearly halfway there.
Yeah, I think the secret to the success is that we do the basics brilliantly. This isn't a team like Marcelo Bielsa, who came at the Premier League and had a unique style of play that was exciting and different. This is a Sunderland team that is physically excellent. We have a midfield engine of Xhaka and Siddiqui in particular. Those two players have covered the most miles in the Premier League of any player. So they're number one and number two. Xhaka's number one, which obviously we were told his legs had gone in the summer, but that's obviously not the case. And Xhaka is like a manager on the field as well, and you'll notice this if you watch the game on Monday. He basically is our manager's eyes on the field, and he does everything on there. So I think the secret to our success is that we don't overcomplicate the game. We are very, very good at winning duels. I think we're pretty much top of the duel winning list. Aerially, we are fantastic. We've got, them intangibles of, working so hard. I mean, if you look at the goal that we scored against Chelsea at the weekend, our winner, it comes from our centre-back, Gertruida, plays a long ball to Brian Brobby. Brian Brobby holds the ball up, and the Chelsea midfield don't track our runners because they don't want it as much as us. And then Gertruida, who plays the ball, ends up being the furthest man forward, does a decoy run, bearing in mind he's cleared it 60 yards up the field. He does the decoy run, the ball goes to Talby, and Talby slots it in the corner. And that goal epitomises what Sunderland are, because we want it so much more. And every game we've won this season, I think, has come down to the fact that we are so committed to getting the victories. And it's like it's life or death for our players. And I think I can't say the same for some of the teams we played this season. I mean, we played Wolves, who were dreadful. We played West Ham, who were dreadful. Brentford weren't fantastic. Nottingham Forest weren't fantastic. And Chelsea at the weekend had no answers really to what we offer, the physicality. So I think the secret is the fact that we are very good at the basics of football. We are excellent at them, and there's probably not many teams better in the Premier League at doing the jobs that are, I think, underrated.
Do you think that's the problem then with teams who are in the relegation, or seem to be in a relegation battle? Is that the likes of Wolves, who you've mentioned? I haven't seen too much of Wolves, but say look at West Ham as well. Like, obviously they had a David Moyes as a manager and did very well under David Moyes, who's considered a pragmatic manager. But now the West Ham fans wanted a change. They wanted difference. They wanted to play the West Ham way. They wanted to play good, decent, attractive football. They've already sacked the manager in Graham Potter, and I guess they may be looking in their eyes. They want to play football the right way, football that's easy on the eye, but they just haven't got the quality of players to do that. Whereas, like you say, Sunderland are just doing the basics well, and I'd probably put Wolves in that category as well. Like I say, I haven't watched too much of Wolves, but I mean, we beat them 3-2 in the league, and then ended up getting beat in the cup. But like you say, doing the basics well, winning second balls, the physicality, winning your battles. Sunderland, like you say, seems to be doing that, whereas the other teams down there at this moment in time don't seem to be.
Yeah, and I think as well with Sunderland is, you talk about teams having identity, and a lot of teams have like a philosophy they kind of like to follow, and I think Sunderland's is that football that is aggressive, and it's high, it's very high energy, and that's what the fans want to see. We don't necessarily care about tippy-tapping through. We don't want to necessarily see a team pass the ball a million times around the back four, like what Swansea used to do back in the day, and seemingly what West Ham fans want. Sunderland fans want to see, like, we love a long ball going up in the centre forward, winning the header and getting you forward. We love the long throws that we are very good at this season. We love scoring goals from set pieces, and our fan base likes that. And I think this is one of the things that comes down to why it's working at Sunderland right now, is there is a definite connection between all areas of the club. The management is connected with the fans and the players, and it's all working nicely in a triangle right now, and that's what's working. Whereas you look at Wolves and West Ham right now, and even Nottingham Forest, you could probably throw into that. All three of them have not got those connections right now. And I think at football clubs, this is what happens. This is why football clubs go in trouble, is that those key areas of a football club don't click right. And, I think that Everton had this issue where there was issues with the owners, wasn't there? And there was a disconnect there, which I think has been repaired. I mean, I think Everton, I sort of said they were circling the drain. It felt like Sunderland before we got relegated. You know, it was just every year it was a constant battle, but I think they've ridden that storm now, and I think Everton are looking upwards and not downwards. But this is what can happen, and you'll know that as an Everton fan, that when things aren't right off the field, it really can hurt your on-field product. And I think we're seeing that at the bottom teams in the Premier League right now. Wolves and West Ham are in trouble, essentially because their ownership have got so many things wrong.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Just moving on then, I'd like to just speak about two players really. One who plays for yourselves and one who plays for us. Habib Diarra, the first one, a player who Everton were linked with in the summer, to be honest. And did he go to Sunderland for in the region of 20 million, 20 plus, was it?
It's our record signing, 30.
30 was it, yeah?
Yeah, 30.8 or something like that.
So I'm just interested, like I haven't seen much of Sunderland, if I'm totally honest. So has he been getting a game? How was he fared? Is he expectation-wise, has he met them so far?
Brilliant, but he got injured got injured maybe after 5 or 6 games of the season. But fantastic in the 5 games that he played. He picked up a muscle injury, so he's out until probably late November, early December, but He looks like a good player. And he looks like what you want in the Premier League. He's physically very good. He's very, very much like Noah Sadiki, who we've got, where lots of energy, lots of physicality, technically pretty good, wins his battle in the midfield and just covers the pitch, box to box to box to box to box all game, running up and down. So he's been a really, really good signing, and you can pick out a lot of Sunderland's business this summer, and they haven't really missed a step on any of their big money signings. There's Arthur Masuaku, who they brought in at left back's a puzzling one. I don't know why they signed him, but other than that, all the ones that they brought in for money have been good. But Habib Diarra looks like a really good player, so he's possibly is one that Everton have missed out on. But obviously, he's injured right now, so you'll not see him on Monday.
I mean, any disappointment from his point of view or from yourself that when he does get himself fit by November, that he probably will go to AFCON in December, probably miss a whole other month, depending on how his country gets on?
Yeah, we've got a few issues with AFCON. I don't know if you look at the Sunderland squad, yeah, we've got lots of players, but we've also recruited enough where I think we'll be okay to get by, and we've got some hard games in there anyway. Like Man City, we play in that period of when AFCON is. We play Brighton away in that period as well, Tottenham away. So they're not necessarily games we would have looked at and thought, yeah, we'll win them. So I think they make a strategic sort of risk in the summer that they thought, right, we'll buy these players in. They'll possibly keep us safe, as it looks like they already have done. We'll pick up the points before December, and then we'll sort of take it from there. But yeah, it's frustrating. And the fact that this tournament was actually meant to take place in the summer and was moved because of the Club World Cup is even more frustrating.
Yeah, absolutely. We got the same issue potentially with Iliman Ndiaye and Idrissa Gana Gueye. So we'll watch this space, depending on how things go. But more than likely, those two will be selected for the countries. I can't not speak to you, a Sunderland fan, Connor, and not speak about Jordan Pickford, Everton's goalkeeper, England's number 1. Obviously, a huge Sunderland fan, and moved to Everton when he was very young for, well, probably a club record fee, I think, at the time, or close to it anyway. Did you think Jordan would go on to have the career that he's had? In terms of, I know you could probably say from a club aspect, it's probably been slightly disappointing in terms of what Everton have achieved or not achieved, I guess. But in terms of sustaining his position as England's number 1 and all the records that he's broken and getting to semi-finals with England and international tournaments and finals, runners-up as the European Championships, did you ever think he had that in his locker to do that?
Yeah, I'd say so. I thought that he was destined to be a top-level goalkeeper, and I loved his kicking, his passion on the field was obviously brilliant. And obviously, he's carried that over to Everton, But when it's your own homegrown player and you're seeing the way that he is on the field and cheering saves like that goals, which obviously he still does now, I love Jordan Pickford. And I think for me, I kind of look at him going to Everton and look at his relationship with the Everton fans and sort of think, in his head, he probably thought this was going to be Sunderland. When he was in the academy he probably thought that this was going to be him, because I think he's quite a loyal guy. I don't think he would chase the move to Man City and stuff unless he was pushed. I think he's shown that at Everton, that he's stuck through all the bad times when he very easily probably could have made a move if he wanted to, but he's loyal. He clearly loves Everton. He clearly still loves Sunderland and is still very complimentary about the club. And I think he's a good guy, but he just looks like he gives Everton so much. Like, the amount of times I see him from goalkeeper winning Everton points in the sense of just the way he is on the field and the confidence that he gives the players, and him making a big save or him screaming at his defenders for not being in position. I think he gives so much. So I think he's a top quality keeper, and I think he's massively underrated. I saw things a couple of weeks ago where the media, I think it was Danny Murphy, was, digging into him, and I'm like, he's been fantastic for England. You can't point to making many mistakes. And every time I watch him at Everton, you could argue he's your best player.
I mean, obviously, he takes a lot of stick from the Geordie side of the Northeast. So Sunderland fans still wish him well and admire him from afar, I guess. Want him to do well in his career. Is that the case?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Him, Jordan Henderson, we were the same with the ones where, that it wasn't their fault that they left. It's just different to players who really itch for the move. I mean, Tommy Watson, for example, who obviously scored our playoff final winning goal in the summer, he itched for a move. So even though he had that heroic moment, he'll not have the same feeling that people have for Pickford and Henderson, because I think it's obvious that they love the club. And I think if things had been different, certainly for Pickford, I think he saw himself being Sunderland's goalkeeper for his career, and it just, the fact that Sunderland was so bad, he's moved to a club, which I think Sunderland fans have a lot of respect for Everton. I think we sort of see ourselves as the same, sort of the ugly sister. We feel like I feel like everyone talks about Newcastle, and you'll feel like everyone talks about Liverpool, but yet we are here, proud, big clubs. And I think Sunderland and Everton have got quite a bit in common with that we are maybe more the community clubs that are less corporate and more for the fans. That's certainly the perception that I have of it. Liverpool, it looks like tourists are at their games, whereas Everton and Sunderland, it still looks like it's, Liverpudlians and Sunderland fans and, local Wearsiders who are there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think many would disagree with what you're saying. And, just from my personal point of view, I've always liked Sunderland, and some of my best away days have gone to Sunderland, whether it's, a defeat or a win. Fantastic stadium. I've been to both St James's Park and the Stadium of Light, and Stadium of Light is by far the better stadium. So, I couldn't agree more. In terms of, I nearly forgot to add this as a question into my agenda, because I must have completely forgot, but thankfully I did remember that David Moyes did actually manage Sunderland many, many years ago. So the fact that obviously he's back now at Everton, it is an interesting dynamic. I mean, how do Sunderland fans view David Moyes? I mean, I'm sure it's not as favourably as Everton fans would be, considering he did take Sunderland down.
Very unfavourable, like public enemy number one, I'd say.
Really? Is it that bad? Yeah.
Well, when he took over at Sunderland, we'd had Sam Allardyce and we'd stayed up. And Allardyce ended up getting the England job, which lasted a game. And Moyes came in and he ripped up the team up and ripped up what we were doing and tried to change things, and brought in players like Stephen Pienaar, who was over the hill at that point. Obviously, he played for you guys for years. Papi Dillabodji, who was an awful player. Didier Ndong, who was our record signing for ages. I mean, we just spent ludicrous amounts of money on rubbish players, and the worst of it is after the first home game of the season, he declared that we were, in a relegation battle. We were, going to be up against it all season, and it never changed from that. It didn't click, which is weird, because David Moyes to me felt like a Sunderland manager, but he never ever clicked. It wasn't a good marriage. He had that thing where he threatened to slap a reporter. I don't know if you remember that when he was at Sunderland. It just was not a healthy relationship, and he actually lasted the full season and tore up his contract at the end of it. Didn't take any money because I don't think we couldn't afford to sack him, and I don't think he was wanting to face the year in the Championship. But I think what I would say about David Moyes is he's done incredibly well to rebuild his career, and I think Sunderland were actually such a shambles at the time. Don't know if many managers would have been able to keep us up that year, but yeah, David Moyes is not I don't think he'd be getting a free drink in Sunderland. Let's put it that way.
No, I didn't. I mean, obviously, a manager takes you down, and you're never going to look on it favourably. But I didn't think it would be as bad in the back of my mind. I don't know why, but obviously it's one of those. In terms of the match, Connor, Monday night, obviously Monday Night Football. How is Sunderland going to set up then, and how do you think Sunderland will attempt to, take all 3 points from Everton? I mean, you've already mentioned strengths that they've got. I guess my question is, any weaknesses that Everton can exploit?
If the teams that have beat us this season, Burnley defeated us by having none of the ball, and they gave us the ball and went, you just do what you want with the ball and we'll just try and hit you on the counter-attack. I would almost caveat that with the fact that we didn't have our first choice defence that game. We hadn't signed Nordy Mukwele. Dan Ballard got injured very early on. We were playing Jensen Steele, who's no longer at the club. So I think if we had our team that's playing right now, we probably would have won that Burnley game. But certainly then they hurt us by not having the ball, and that was the best way of beating us this season. Manchester United, we lost, and that was a tactical issue where our manager just got the game wrong. We also missed an absolute sitter in the first minute of the game, which would have changed things. But other than that, what we've seen from Sunderland this season is that we've largely done, certainly at home, we've picked up 10 points, we've won 3, we've drawn 1, and the one we drew, we were down to 10 men for an hour against Aston Villa, and it was a pretty credible point. At home, we've been pretty ferocious, we don't give up much, we don't allow teams into the centre of the pitch. That's the main tactical thing that we do. So we will let you have the ball on the wings. Whether or not we change that because of Jack Grealish, Nilman and Dye, maybe we do, but largely we don't let teams go through the middle. If you look at Chelsea's heat map at the weekend, there is a massive area basically outside the box where they don't get in the whole game with the ball. So that's probably where you can hurt us. The fact that we will actually play to your advantages and probably will let you have the ball on the wing and let players like Grealish potentially hurt us. At the weekend, Chelsea have got good wingers, and we went with a 5 at the back, which we haven't normally done. And what we did there was we had a back 5 that when we were in possession changed to a 4-4-2, which really, really hurt Chelsea and confused them, and they didn't look prepared for that. So it's possible we could do the same thing where when we're out of possession we play a 5-4-1. When we're in possession, that'll switch over to a 4-4-2, and we'll have Trey Hume, who plays right wing back. He moves into central midfield, and then Nordy Mukwele, who's a right back or a centre back, he moves over to right back, so it puts us into a 4. So I think if I was Everton and I was thinking of a way of hurting Sunderland, I think the thing I would do is really utilise the wingers and try and hurt us down the flanks, because we will give you time to do that, because our system is very much, if you cross the ball in the box, we are going to probably win the headers. But I think the quality you have on the wings, and I love Jack Grealish, he's one of my favourite players. I worry about a player like him coming up against our full backs and getting joy, because we will give them time. So yeah, that's probably the area where you can hurt us.
It's interesting because that's kind of how Everton have transitioned this season, from a team kind of sitting back with a bit of a low block and trying to hit teams on the counter or force mistakes on the opposition. But now with Grealish and Dye, Dewsbury Hall, who have been the 3 behind the striker, it's the aim is to get the ball wide and then those crosses into the box, which, if I'm being totally honest, hasn't worked 100% of the time, and it has been fairly frustrating. There's a lot of debate among Everton fans with regards to that. Obviously, a lot of people blaming the striker in Beto and Barry, who's come on and they're just not making the efforts, not the efforts as such, but or taking the plunge to get in those areas to get on the end of those crosses. Or there's the other debate where we're trying to transition too quickly, even with the likes of Grealish and Ndai. It's become almost hitting a brick wall, because we get to that final third and it's fairly easy to defend against it. So it is interesting. I mean, can I make a bold prediction that the team with the Lions' share of possession potentially could be the team that loses that game on Mondays? It's the team who doesn't have the Lions' share of possession would make the most of what they can.
Yeah, I would probably agree with that assessment. I think.
Will Sunderland let Everton have the ball? And do you think will that be a tactic during the game?
We're not as bad for that as like a Burnley would be. We aren't going to totally sacrifice possession of the ball, but it's more that when you have the ball, we will happily move back into our low block, mid block sort of position. We will happily do that, but we're not going to be passive. Sunderland basically press the team in their own defensive third, but if you get through that defensive third, we will sit back and then go back into our positions. That's generally how we like to play. We're not full press. We're just going to press all over the park. It's a much more measured press. I would probably agree, though. I would think that the possession will probably be about 50-50, because I imagine watching Everton when they played Leeds away, I mean, they were absolutely honking on the opening day. It was terrible. But when they played Leeds away, they were really, really poor. But Leeds dominated the ball in that game, and I felt like Everton sacrificed that on purpose. I don't know if they just couldn't deal with Leeds on the evening, but I don't see Everton allowing us to do what Leeds did. I would think they would probably have learned their lessons from that, and I think we're probably going to see a much more of a chess game. The other thing I'd say with Sunderland is that we are very happy drawing a game on 70 minutes because we have scored 4 goals pretty much from 88 minutes onwards this season. We are a team that our slogan is till the end. That's what the club goes by, and we've scored a lot of late goals. I mean, if you watch the playoffs, you'll see we scored 3 goals in the playoffs. So we've got a bit of a mantra at the club that we will score late goals, and there's a feeling within the fan base that we'll always get chances towards end of games, and that's probably what Sunderland are thinking. I think I'm happy right now if you tell me the game's 0-0 on 70 minutes. That's probably what our manager wants, and then we've got what he calls as finishers that come on for the last 20 minutes of the game that change things. Talby at the weekend is one of those finishers. Brobby, who held the ball up for the goal, as a finisher. We've got options to come on to sort of change the game. So I think from a Sunderland perspective, I think we aren't going to sacrifice the ball willy-nilly. But I don't think we are not a team that keeps the ball for keeping the ball's sake. We are always trying to be progressive with it. We're not going to pass the ball around the back four. We are going to try and get up the pitch and create attacks. And I think that means that we do sacrifice a lot of the ball because we are always trying and we're always probing to try and create chances.
Who's likely to make the difference for Sunderland, and who's going to be the match winner if there's going to be one? Whether it's from an assist point of view or, a goal scoring point of view?
I think it's probably going to be Ballard, who's our centre-back, because he is a nuisance to defend against from set pieces and throw-ins. Our first goal at the weekend comes from a long throw, and Ballard wins the first header. And defence is panic around him because he's so good in the air, and I think that has been a really big weapon for us this season. And I saw at the weekend, obviously, Everton conceded 2 goals from set pieces. I think they are possibly the first 2 goals they've conceded from set pieces this season.
Yeah, so, I mean, just on that is correct. And it's just really worrying now that Tottenham kind of exploited that and made us look really weak in that area, despite us only being, well, it was the first time that we conceded from set pieces. And I think, I might be wrong on this, that it was that we were the only team yet to concede a goal from a set piece. So the fact that we've done it a couple of games into the season now and we look so weak from it, I think other teams are just going to follow Tottenham's blueprint, really. So it could be a concern moving forward.
We are a really horrible team to play against for set pieces. We really do utilise them, and we have got a lot of success this season from long throws and corners. And the other thing I'd say is Xhaka takes a lot of our set pieces, and his delivery is, I can't really remember a time where he's hit a bad cross into the box. So we've got a very good set-piece delivery there. So I think that's an area. Sunderland can win games on fine margins from things like that. And when a game's balanced at 0-0, we have been very good at defending set-pieces and we are very good at attacking set-pieces. And Ballard himself, he makes defenders panic. And that's the thing. And it gives other players space because they're all worried about him because he's so good in the air. And considering he didn't play a ton when we were in the Championship, he's came up the Premier League and looks built for the level. It's weird how that sort of works.
And if there was one player from Sunderland who you think Everton could exploit, or I guess likely to make a mistake, who would it be? Just if I can jump in first on from an Everton point of view, we've got a centre-back playing right-back at this moment in time, Jake O'Brien. So again, I think teams have kind of jumped on that and picked on that a little bit, that, use a little bit of pace down that, the opposition's left-hand side to force a mistake, Jake O'Brien, then they might make some headway. Is there anything from Sunderland where you think Everton can force their way onto?
I think our right side, which obviously would contradict you on the left side, but yeah, our right side's not at times the best. We've got Bertrand Traore playing on the right wing, who's not been great since he's come in. We brought him in the summer. We don't actually have another real right winger, so that's been an issue. But then also, if we play the 4-3-3, our right central midfielder should be Habib Diarra. He's obviously injured, so we've had an issue there where we've tried Chris Rigg, but he's still 18 years old. He's basically still in nappies, and we've put him out there, and he's played a lot of games for us, but he's not, I don't think, yet quite at Premier League level. We've got Getrauda, who's actually a centre-back who we've tried in there, but he's not really a threat going forward. So that right central midfield area is weak. And then at right back, we've got Trey Hume, who has been better the last few weeks, but he did have a bit of a slow start this season. And I think he can be hurt. And I look at Jack Grealish, who probably will be going up against him, and I would worry about that matchup. I'd worry about Grealish going up against him and the threat that could pose. Now, the other thing Sunderland could do, which we did do against Wolves, was we moved Nordy Mukwele to right back, and he is a far better player than Trehew. I mean, Mukwele shouldn't be playing for Sunderland. He should be playing for a top-end Premier League team. I don't really understand. Much like Granit Xhaka, I don't understand why he's playing for Sunderland in the most respectful way possible to Sunderland. But him at right back, he's incredible. And if we decide to be really brutal to Trehew, who's obviously been with us since League One, and take him out of this game and put Mukwele at right back, and then we'll play Dan Ballard and Alderete. And Alderete we brought in from Getafe, and he's been fantastic, but he missed last weekend with a concussion. That's probably the best way for us to play. But I think if you see Trehew's name on that team sheet, then I think I would fancy Jack Grealish to win that battle, or Illiman and Dye if they swap around in the game. I would fancy them to win that battle.
What I'd love to do, Connor, is to get you back on the podcast for the reverse fixture for the home game. Were you any plans to go to Everton's new stadium to visit Hill Dickinson in the future? Obviously, Sunderland, I guess, are a club in more recent or modern times. You have changed stadiums from Roker Park to the Stadium of Light, and Everton, I guess, are just finding the feet in the new stadium. What have you made of the new build?
I think I would probably start by talking about Goodison, in as much as, so my family's actually all from Liverpool, and they're split Liverpool-Everton, as weird as it is that apparently that happens in Liverpool, that we all have split fan bases in the family. So the Goodison Park was not fit for purpose. I've been there as an away fan a few times, and probably the best thing I can say about it to explain why I feel this way is I was at the FA Cup game where Sunderland drew 1-1. You won the reverse fixture at the Stadium of Light 2-0. And I bought a drink, and they gave you a plastic cup to put the drink in because they don't obviously let away fans have bottles. And I was on the end, so I was right on the wall of the stand, and I put my cup on like one of the metal bars for like 2 minutes, and then when I came back to have a drink, it was full of like rust floaters. And that to me epitomizes what a Premier League ground shouldn't be. So they desperately needed to leave Goodison Park. I'm glad that they've built the new ground, and it looks, obviously I've not been yet, it looks fantastic. It looks German. That's what my sort of feeling of it is. It looks more like a European ground, but I do like the look of it. I watched the guys from the Claret and Blue podcast. He did a video where he was walking on the outside of the stadium doing his sort of match review. I think John Townley, I think that's his name.
Oh, yeah.
He did a video anyway, walking on the outside, and it was buzzing with people in bars and stuff outside the ground. It looked, and obviously being on the riverfront, it looks fantastic. So I think it was a move that had to happen, and fundamentally, Roker Park was falling apart. It's a little bit before my era, because I first went to a game in 1999. We left in 1997. But from everything I've heard about Roker Park, it just wasn't fit for purpose anymore, and we moved to the Stadium of Light, and it's one of the better grounds in the country, and I think Everton's is the same. It's one of the better grounds in the country, and I think it's a move. And also, the one thing I would say is that you've started okay there. If you actually look at the historical data of teams moving to new stadiums in the Premier League, they generally actually really struggle. Southampton really struggled when they did it.
Arsenal did as well.
Yeah, a lot of teams did. So the fact that Everton have started okay, it was important you won the first game there. I think you beat Brighton, didn't you? So no, I think it's a great stadium, and I hope I get to go, but it's a nightmare getting away tickets for Sunderland. You just can't get them.
Demand is huge.
Yeah, it's horrific, and it would be the same for Everton.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't been to an away game for a while, unfortunately, but that is down to having kids and getting married, I guess. But it is what it is. Obviously, Monday night then, Connor, are you going to be going? Are you going to be watching it on the telly?
Yeah, I'll be there.
So what's I guess prediction-wise for the game, I'll ask you that first, but then I'll ask you secondly, where do you think Sunderland will finish, and where do you think Everton will finish in the season?
I think the prediction for the game is it's going to go. It'll probably be a bit of a coin flip game for me. I think we're either looking at a 0-0 or a 1 goal either side. I think the strength of Sunderland's home form sort of tends me to think that if anyone's going to win it, it'll probably be Sunderland. But I think if you were really pinning us down for a prediction, I'd probably go 0-0 or 1-1. I think that Everton have got. I really like Everton's attack. That's the brutal, honest truth of it. I like Illiman and Dye. I like Dewsbury Hall. I like Grealish. Beto, I think, has come on leaps and bounds. And I think you've got things that can hurt us. I do think we've got things we can... I think our midfield is stronger than the Everton's midfield. I think we can hurt you in transition. But I think we've got a chance here where, if Everton's front line's playing well, I think they're going to cause us real problems. But I think we're looking at a tight game. I'll go 1-1, I think. I'll go 1-1.
Interesting. I'm not going to give my prediction. Yeah, well, I'm going to have to, aren't I? Because I'm on a show. I think Everton are going to struggle, to be honest. Based on what you're saying, I think we could struggle based on how Sunderland's set up and how they're maybe going to nullify Everton's attack. So it could be a long afternoon. Now, I really want to go positive, but I'm actually going to go for a 0-0 draw, if I'm being totally honest. So I'll go for 0-0. Season prediction. What did you give us that? Sorry.
No, I didn't. I think I'll start with Everton. I think Everton will be nowhere near relegation trouble. I don't think there'll be anything more than that, though. I don't see them. Maybe 10th is probably the ceiling of Everton right now, but I think if I was to plonk you in there, I'd plonk you in the Fulham position of somewhere in 12th to 13th. Not worried about relegation, but not really doing much else. In terms of Sunderland, I mean, before the season, I had us 19th. I did a season prediction. I moved us up to 16th at the last international break. I think that I'm probably going to settle somewhere in the region of similar to Everton, 12th to 13th. I don't think we'll maintain what we've done so far this season. We've got a horrific fixture list in December as well. We played Man City twice. We played Liverpool away. We've got the Derby game. We played Brighton away. We've got a really bad fixture list in December, and then we lead in AFCON where we lose about 6 players. So I don't think
would you take 17 now? Would you actually take 17th?
No, I don't think
if someone had offered you right now.
Than that.
Really, yeah?
We can do better than that, yeah.
Wow. Holding all the cards.
We've got 17 points, though. That's the thing.
No, I know.
So you don't want to undersell yourself. I mean, I think Sunderland could have a special season if things continue to go right, but I think the pessimist in me, who's watched Sunderland for years, is unwilling to believe that we could be threatening sort of the top half. But I'm seeing a lot with my own eyes from 9 games of the season that suggests that Sunderland are a pretty good team. But I know underlying data, which is always a thing that people point at, XG and stuff, we are overperforming our XG. We are about right on our expected goals against. So there's a potential there that maybe we are getting a tiny bit lucky so far this season. But yeah, I think we'll finish somewhere in the middle. I think Sunderland and Everton will probably both finish with about 45 to 50 points, would be my guess.
Fantastic. Connor, any final thoughts before we shoot off?
I hope Everton have a decent season. I think it would be nice in the next 5 years if we see both Sunderland and Everton pushing to get into Europe and stop
lifting a trophy.
Newcastle. Yeah, or lifting a trophy. Yeah, we won the Papa John's, to be fair.
Sorry, that laugh. I shouldn't have laughed like that. Sorry.
No, it's embarrassing.
Well, you never know. I mean, the foundations have obviously been built for Sunderland, and you're certainly building on that. I'm delighted for Sunderland and the fans. Just obviously not going to be delighted for them if they win on Monday. Obviously, the old cliche.
The feeling's mutual.
Connor, thank you very much for joining us on the Royal Blue podcast, and we will be back again soon on the YouTube channel and all Apple and Spotify platforms. See you later.